we saw an absolute masterclass boxing clinic from Shakur as he became a 4-time weight division champion and the new WBO in-ring magazine champion at the 140.
Shakur made Teo look like an absolute bum, which is crazy because Teofimo Lopez is a 2-division champion. He's one of the best fighters in our modern day, and Shakur made him look like a bum.
Champion at 126, 130, 135, 140. This guy is a great fighter. You know what I'm saying? This guy is kind of like putting himself in the history books.
I mean, Shakur, I'd say he's top 5 pound for pound fighter.
Shakur beat Teofimo so bad that Teofimo deactivated all his social media accounts. So we'll see.
What stage of grief do you think he's currently on right now?
Probably, I don't even know.
Denial.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's no way. He's in denial right now.
He's in acceptance already, bro. No. Welcome back to another episode of the Last Round Podcast, where we cover everything from traditional boxing to influencer boxing and everything in between. Today's episode, we'll be going over the Shakur Stevenson versus Teofimo undercard, as well as Josh Kelly, Murtazaliev, and Xander Zayas against Jarrell. But before we get into the episode, make sure to like and subscribe and follow us on all forms of social media. Lastly, we're trying to build up a community on Discord, and you guys joining would be greatly appreciated. And now, diving into the episode. This past weekend, we had the highly anticipated 140 matchup featuring Shakur Stevenson taking on the champion WBO and Ring Magazine, Teofimo Lopez. This fight was, we all predicted it last week. We all gave our predictions. We all thought that Shakur would come out victorious in what we thought would be a more competitive fight, just based on the accolades, the style, and how Teofimo Lopez tends to show up during the big occasions. But that was the complete opposite. We saw an absolute masterclass boxing clinic from Shakur as he became a 4-time weight division champion and the new WBO in-ring magazine champion at the 140. Thoughts about this fight?
Yeah, it was an ass whooping. Complete ass whooping. Teofimo Lopez performed one of the worst performances of his career, and it was disappointing to see because I thought he was gonna lose, but it was gonna be at least competitive. I thought he'd win 3 rounds, 4 rounds maybe, but he won 1, and that's kind of you gotta really like him to give him that round because it wasn't like he dominated or anything. It was a very close round, so very disappointing to see, especially as a Teofimo Lopez fan. It was hard to see him go out so sad. I was expecting a little bit more from him, but that's the game. That's boxing, and you really have to give all your props to Shakur Stevenson. He said going into this fight that it was going to be an easy fight. He said that this was a mismatch, and he showed it in the ring this past weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it was so easy. When you fight against Shakur Stevenson, obviously you're going to lose, right? Obviously, you know what I'm saying? I think for me, I'm a little bit more sadder in the fact that I didn't put the mortgage on Shakur Stevenson. Throughout the fight, they're putting on the live odds, as the rounds progress, and I want to say pretty early on, like after the 3rd or 4th round, the odds were like negative 10,000 for Shakur Stevenson. And this was on DraftKings. So, yeah, obviously you're going to lose against a fighter that a lot of people now are considering, the next Floyd Mayweather. Shakur Stevenson showed those he showed a lot. He showed that not only could he box and show his ring IQ, but he also stood his ground against a guy who, a lot of people thought that he wasn't going to stand his ground. Teofimo Lopez's body frame is wide. You look at the muscles, the biceps, and you go, wow, you don't want to stand in front of this guy. And Shakur Stevenson showed us that he will. He's going to stand toe to toe. You know what I'm saying? He fought against another. Well, he fought against a Mexican aggressor in William Cepeda, and he was like, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna still stand my ground. I'm not gonna stand as much as I did against Cepeda, but I'm still gonna stand my ground." Look what happened. He was able to cut up Teofimo Lopez's face. You know what I'm saying? He cut him up. He beat him up, and at the end of the day, he took his soul. You know what I'm saying? And at the end, he had Lopez apologizing for whatever reason.
Yeah, apologizing for slavery. No, but it was crazy because Shakur was on the front foot for the majority of the fight. That's not to say, you know, he wasn't alert or he wouldn't take the back step when he needed to. But he was on the front foot, and it was Teofimo Lopez that was kind of circling around, which I was very surprised to see because I thought with Teo, stand your ground with Shakur, man. And yeah, you might take a couple shots going in, but at least you're close to him to where maybe your explosivity, your speed could give you a chance to land a big shot. But no, it wasn't like that. You know, Shakur was on the front foot, being the quote unquote bigger guy, and kind of bowling Teo around the ring. Teo was trying to do some flashy stuff, but nothing really spectacular. And Shakur really did show him that there's levels to this boxing game. And he showed that he definitely should be considered one of the top pound for pound fighters today.
Yeah, during the fight, a lot of people online, especially after, I would say, were... You know, when it comes to Teofimo, there's always a lot of critique, more so with his corner, more notably his father, right? Every time they showcase his father giving him advice in between the rounds, they're always saying, people online were saying, yo, what's he saying? Like, he needs a better corner, he needs a better coach, he won't progress, this and that. And that critique was on full display this past weekend because a lot of people online, and even, you know, we saw it ourselves, how Teofimo Sr. was simply not really giving them any advice. He was telling them, where's your footwork? Where's your power? In order to win the fight, you have to beat him. It's like, yo, like, what do you, like, tell him how to do that.
I think the best one was, you just gotta hit him, bro.
Yeah. I mean, like, okay, yes, you're right, but how am I going to hit him? Tell me how to do it. And a lot of people online were saying, yo, like, this has got to be the last straw. I mean, they always say that, but at this point, you got humiliated by Shakur in a fight that you looked absolutely underwhelmed. You looked completely mismatched in there, and your corner is telling you all these things. It's more like if he was roasting him, if anything, not even giving him advice. So a lot of people online were once again jumping on the critique, on the bandwagon, saying, yo, Teofimo Lopez needs a new trainer, yada yada. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, you know, that is a really good critique, you know, not having, you know, the correct cornermen, you know, leading you and trying to give you adjustments throughout a big fight like this, right? But, you know, I've been thinking about this, and, you know, that is a really big critique. But if I'm going to be honest, if Teofimo Lopez did switch trainers, or, you know, because of the father and son dynamic, maybe if they decide to bring in, you know, someone else, you know what I'm saying? But still a big coach, you know, that has quite a bit of experience, I don't think he would have beaten Shakur Stevenson. I think Shakur Stevenson has that style that is just going to impose a lot of difficulty for Teofimo Lopez. So even if they had the best trainer in the corner, I don't think it would have been enough. I think he maybe would have won 2 rounds, but no, I don't think it would have been enough to beat Shakur Stevenson.
Yeah, I don't think it would have changed the outcome of the fight either. With that being said, at least he could have given him better corner advice, you know? He could have steered him in the right direction. Whereas Senior just doesn't do that, man. Senior is kind of a hype man, I would say. You know, he kind of makes you feel good, kind of amps you up, which is needed sometimes. But other times when you're getting outboxed, you need a little bit more boxing direction instead of just a hype man. And I do think that the transition needs to be made. I think Teofimo Lopez needs a new trainer, a new coach, someone to guide his boxing abilities, because he does have great boxing abilities. He's a very athletic boxer. And obviously, he has so many accolades in the sport, which is another thing I want to bring up. Yeah, Shakur made Teo look like an absolute bum, like a complete bum, which is crazy because Teofimo Lopez is a 2-division champion. He's beaten Vasily Lomachenko, a former number 1 pound for pound fighter. He beat Taylor, who was the top guy at the 140 division. This guy isn't a bum. He's a very great fighter. He's one of the best fighters in our modern day. And Shakur made him look like a bum. So I definitely do think that, Teo needs to go back to the drawing board. He's got to assess things. And I think he knows deep down that he needs a new trainer. The problem is that's a father and son duo, and Teo Sr., you already know he's got that ego, he's got that pride. So all those things, it kind of makes it a bit difficult. He might see it as an insult, and he might see it that he doesn't want Teo to be the same relationship, but Senior just got to see it as it is, man. He's got to put his son's future in his mind and say, like, he does need somebody to better help him, actually give him some boxing directions instead of just saying you gotta hit him. That's not gonna help you in a fight. So Teo definitely gotta go back in the drawing board and assess some things.
Yeah, that's a really good topic that you bring up because, where does Teofimo Lopez go from here? You know what I'm saying? He loses against a guy, a great fighter, a pound for pound great, but this is a guy who moved up a weight class, and he was able to expose him and then do this much damage and then just make him look super average, you know what I'm saying? Or if below average, you know what I'm saying? So, where does Teofimo Lopez go from here? Because in regards to the coaching thing, he wouldn't have beaten Shakur Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson is just that guy. But moving forward, I do believe there has to be some change made within the trainer aspect, because if he wants to continue to prosper in this business, he has to switch coach.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, he said he wanted to move up to 147. In his post-fight interview, which is kind of crazy to me, but he wasn't really sure. He seemed kind of out of it.
Yo, he was trying to get Crawford to fight him as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, before they were announcing the scorecards, Crawford, who is a very, very good friend of Shakur Stevenson, got up into the ring and started doing like that little Fortnite dance to the whole Teofimo Lopez team. And then Crawford and Teo they were really close to each other. Teo goes and says, "Yo, I still got to get mine with you though," or something like that. He says, "Oh, I still got to fight you." What are you saying? If you can't even beat Shakur Stevenson, what do you think you're gonna do against Crawford, right? And Crawford's retired either way, but regardless, Crawford can come out of retirement, and I think Crawford would stop Teofimo Lopez. So I don't know what Teo was on. He's always been a little bit crazy. Maybe after all those jabs that Shakur landed on him, his headspace wasn't really right, and he wasn't thinking straight. Because don't get shut out against Shakur Stevenson and then think you can somehow beat Terrence Crawford, because that's not how it works.
Well, actually, styles make fights, so you know what I'm saying. Lopez does have the advantage on that.
Yeah, perhaps I don't know, maybe, but I don't know, man. Teo, he's in a bit of a weird situation. He was the longest reigning champ at 140 for a while. The 140 division is very volatile. All the champions keep on changing and everything. And he stayed for I don't know how long, but over a year for sure, maybe 2. But now he's always flirted with the idea of going up to 147. He said it again in his post-fight interview. I don't know if he wants to do that. I really don't think maybe he could, because the 140 division isn't very stacked. You know, it's not like you have Boots Ennis or, you know, big name fighters at that weight class, or real killers at that weight class. So he could still go up there and make a good impression. But I don't know, man. I think he definitely should take some time, assess himself, and going forward, he should probably I don't know. I was going to say he should probably pick his opponents well. Because why the fuck would he fight Shakur Stevenson? You know, like, that's one of the hardest styles for him. And even then, Shakur is a great fighter. I knew going into this fight that he had the better skills, but I thought at least Teo was going to be able to put up something of a performance, and he didn't. So I was very disappointed by him. So I don't know. He definitely has to go back to the drawing board.
Mm-hmm. Well, Shakur beat Teofimo so bad that Teofimo deactivated all his social media accounts. He's no longer on X. He's no longer on Instagram. So right now, Teofimo is in a state of hibernation. I would assume. So isolation, better yet. So we'll see.
What stage of grief do you think he's currently on right now?
Probably. I don't even know.
Denial.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's no way. He's in denial right now.
He's in acceptance already, bro. No, but we'll see what happens regarding Teofimo Lopez and his future. A lot of people are trying to pin him up against still some other interesting firefights at the 140. For example, Pitbull Cruz or even Subriel Matias, who was coming off from a devastating KO loss to Dalton earlier in January. But there's still a lot of good names for Teofimo. It's just the question of asking, when will we see him again? Will we see him later this year or maybe sometime next year? Who knows at this point? But let's go on to Shu Shu Shakur. Now he, like I said, he is the new WBO and Ring Magazine champion at the 140, as well as the WBC lightweight champion. So Shu Shu Shakur had mentioned how he was thinking about going back down to 135 if he wasn't able to get any big fights at 140. So he's got options. He's got a lot of options. The thing is, will anyone want to fight him? Because, I mean, after putting up a performance like that against the so-and-so best fighter at 140 and absolutely dismantling him the way he did, not a lot of people are going to want to step up to the plate and challenge a fighter of the caliber of Shu Shu Shakur. So Shakur, the only person I really saw who was calling him out was one, Conor Benn, the whole altercation that they had during the post-fight interview, and also O'Shaquie Foster, who on social media was saying, I want Shakur. So those at the moment are the only two fighters that I see that have been vocal about wanting to fight Shakur next. The question is, what will Shakur do? Will he stay at 140 or will he go back down to 135 and fight there? What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's the thing. When you're such a great fighter, I mean, you have so many options, right? He's still a champion at 135, and now he's a champion at 140, champion at 126, 130, 135, 140. You know, this guy is a great fighter. You know what I'm saying? This guy is kind of like putting himself in the history books. You know, become a 4-time weight world champion. So he definitely has a lot of options. And I think just personally for me, the way I'm seeing his career is the fact how he's kind of like transitioned out of that amateur style and more catered towards the professional rankings. You know what I'm saying? At 126, he was more, you know, touch, and then, you know, he's moving out of the way. You know what I'm saying? Touch and then move, touch and move, touch and move. We weren't really seeing, you know, him like stopping guys like that. Now we're seeing him stand his ground a lot more against guys who, you know, theoretically are bigger than him, but he's not scared of that. You know, he's able to, you know, use his ring IQ and just, you know, the confidence that he has within himself to put up these good performances and, you know, stand his ground and actually show that he actually does have pop. You know what I'm saying? He's not a runner. You know what I'm saying? This guy's a boxer. And I think with this fight, it truly was, I don't want to say his breakout fight, but I think it was a fight that I think a lot of people now are, you know, there's no denying that this guy is very dangerous. You know, he's not just your slick American boxer. You know, he can box, but he can also bang as well.
Yeah, the question does have to be asked, right? How good is Shakur Stevenson? Because he made Teofimo Lopez look like nothing, you know, and Teo is no pushover. So I said it last episode, whoever won this fight, depending on how they won, was going to rise on the pound-for-pound rankings. And Shakur made Teofimo Lopez look like a bum, right? So, I mean, Shakur, I'd say he's top 5 pound-for-pound fighter right now. I might put him 3 to 4. I think he's really like that. He really impressed me. He really showed me that even with guys that are physically stronger than him, he can handle that. And his range, just his IQ in the ring is insane, man. Like it really is. It's a sight to see. So very impressed by him. I think has a very bright future. He has a lot of opportunities now because, he's a champion at 140 and 135. So he can really do it all. I don't know, man. I'd prefer to see him stay at 140. I think there'd be more fights there for him at 140. 135 is kind of in a weird position right now. If he were to go down to 135, the big fight that I'd want to see him in is against Gervonta Davis. But that guy's in jail right now, so we're not going to see that, right? He made his first court appearance, so we're not going to see him fighting anytime soon. And he got stripped either way. So that fight's off the table. And, we got Murataya, Abdullah Mason. I don't know. I mean, they're good fights. Don't get me wrong, right? But I'd prefer to see him at 140. I think 140, they're more interesting fights there.
They're more intriguing almost. You see, a smaller guy fighting up against bigger guys, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like how Lomachenko, moved up these weight classes and then he was fighting bigger guys, but he was still able to put up a worthy performance in stopping these bigger guys, you know what I'm saying? So it's very interesting to see how, he matches up with some of these bigger guys at 140. I mean, he beat Lopez, and that guy is kind of huge. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting to see how, he would match up against some of those guys at that weight class. Yeah,
definitely. Exactly. So I want to see him stay at 140. And he called out Conor Benn, too, which was kind of crazy to me. The funniest thing about that whole interaction was when Conor Benn went up into the ring and everything, and Shakur told him, "I'm gonna put the same rehydration clause that you put on Eubank." I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It was a completely out of left field. I did not expect that to happen after Shakur won that fight, but hey, it was entertaining to watch. So I think that's the best you can ask for. So I want to see him stay at 140, but the thing that I see an obstacle in the way of him staying is Keyshawn Davis, who's his brother. They're really close together. They're tight. So Keyshawn made his debut at 140, and he looked amazing. And I don't know if Shakur wants to get in his way to, keep titles to himself, because they're not fighting each other. They're never going to fight each other. Both of them have said, we're not fighting each other no matter what amount of money. So that's the only obstacle I see in the way to where Shakur might say, 140 is Keyshawn's division. I'll stick to 135.
Yeah, speaking about Keyshawn, like you said, he made his official debut at 140 after over a year of a hiatus, because remember last time that we were supposed to see Keyshawn fight was against Edwin De Los Santos, in a fight that he went overweight, was stripped off his title, and the fight didn't come to fruition. And then the whole fight day antics between him and his brother in the backstage, yada yada, the whole thing was a whole mess. Keyshawn got bad reputation, and he kind of went, low key. He kind of worked in silence after that.
Actually, I think he was drinking, no?
Probably. Wasn't he drinking? I think he was, yeah. Point is, that was the worst. It was an all-time low for Keyshawn. He lost a lot of respect from the fans. He lost a lot of fans, and people kind of brushed him aside. Well, he came back, announced his return at the 140, new division now, against Jermaine Ortiz, a man who is tough, durable, and has fought against good opponents like Vasily Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez, and has given them tough fights. So, seeing what Keyshawn did to Jermaine Ortiz, stopping him in the 12th round in the last, 20 seconds?
No, it was like the last 15 seconds.
Insane. Yeah. He whooped the shit out of Jermaine Ortiz. And to look good against Jermaine Ortiz is kind of tough because Jermaine Ortiz is a bit of an awkward kind of fighter, a little bit of a quote-unquote, what people will call him, a runner. Very, very, very hard to look good against a fighter of that type of style. But Keyshawn showcased patience, he showcased body work, he showcased sharpness. He was on point, got the stoppage, and has made his appearance at this new division. And currently he is ranked number 1 according to the WBO. So on paper he would be next in line to take on Shakur. But then again, as it was stated by both fighters in previous interviews, they would not fight one another. So I mean, it's very interesting to see the dynamic between the two, considering the fact they also had multiple sparrings during their camps leading up to this fight and how tight and close they are. So it's very interesting to see where they go with this, considering the fact that Keyshawn is the number 1 ranked fighter under Shakur's, under the WBO. So I'm very intrigued to see where they decide to kind of navigate Keyshawn's career, because at this moment of time, Shakur is the main guy, and Keyshawn has to find a way to kind of leave his mark, especially now that he's debuting at this new division at the 140.
Yeah, I have a question for you guys about between Shakur and Davis, but before I even get into that. Davis's performance against Jermaine Ortiz. Jermaine Ortiz is a guy who is very durable. This guy has, been through the ropes. He's fought better opposition. He fought Teofimo Lopez. He fought Vasily Lomachenko, and he put up a worthy performance against those guys. You know what I'm saying? A guy from, I think he's somewhere from the East Coast. But this guy is durable. The mechanic. This guy, every time he gets up in the ring, he gives... he's able to impose some type of difficulty on the opponent, and that was not the case against Davis. Davis is a guy who was able to I would even say slowly, but he just broke him down right away. He got the timing on, and then Ortiz just basically fought Davis's fight throughout the whole entire fight, and Davis was able to be the mechanic. He was touching him up and he was breaking him down and he was busting up his face. And at the end, Ortiz's face was all swollen. I'm pretty sure he was, that left eye was closed up as well. But he still kept pushing until, Ortiz couldn't anymore. And Davis, I think the cherry on top was him, stopping Ortiz in the last few seconds of that fight. Cherry on top, what I'm saying? Good performance. I thought that Davis was going to struggle a lot against Ortiz just based on, his resume. Didn't happen. Didn't plan out that way. Now, at a new weight class, Davis looks like that he could potentially, he has great potential to become a world champion at that new weight class at 140. And he's the number 1 contender for the WBO. Shakur Stevenson is a champion of the WBO. How do you guys feel about two brothers not wanting to face each other?
Yeah, it is definitely a question because I think Teo was poking fun of that idea leading up to this fight. Also, other people have as well, saying, that's not really fair. Like, if he's in your weight class, like, if it's in your weight class, then you should fight him. You should treat him as any other opponent. And get in the ring and do your best and try to beat him. So it is a bit difficult. With that being said, there is some personal ties that they have. Obviously, they've I don't know if they grew up together, but they have a long history, and they're really good friends and everything, all this type of stuff. So it's hard. And even if there is even if there was some mandate. Let's say that Shakur had to fight Keyshawn, they'd probably just try to price each other out, and try to make the negotiations all convoluted, and they wouldn't actually, the fight would never really happen. So, this has happened before, It's nothing new. You know, we had the Charlo brothers, right? I believe they were in the same weight class, and they were never going to fight each other, obviously. So
even in the amateurs, they would never fight each other. You know what I'm saying? They would always try to, if for whatever reason, while they were growing up, they were, in the same weight class for a tournament. Once they would face each other, they would flip a coin or something. And then just one of the other twins would, take the place and, the winner status.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
I go like, I mean, I feel like, you
have to give some leeway to twin brothers. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like that makes sense. Right? Yeah.
I don't think people were wanting the Klitschko brothers at the heavyweight division to fight each other like that.
Yeah.
And so I think I understand, when it comes to brothers not wanting to fight each other, but when it comes to two brothers from another mother, I think the story is a little bit different.
Perhaps, man. Hey, it is true because they're not really they're not related, but I don't know, man. It's hard, and at this point in time in boxing, the boxers have all of the leverage. They have all the power. The promoters can try to implement their plans, their ideas, but if the boxer doesn't want to sign, he's not going to do it. So these guys, if they don't want to fight each other, then that's final. They're not going to fight each other. They're never going to be opponents. And I think it's okay because Shakur is, he can kind of go to 135 as well. And he can also even go, I guess, to 147 or something if he wants to fight Conor Benn. Same thing with Keyshawn. Keyshawn is a big guy. I never really realized how physically imposing he is. He's a pretty big guy because Jermaine Ortiz is a big guy. Ortiz, whenever he gets in that ring, he's always in tip-top shape, man. That's one of the things I respect of him. Is he always gets in the ring 100%. And that's why I was very impressed by the performance from Davis. I really did think that this fight definitely brought back a lot of fans, including me, because after he beat Lemos, I was completely sold on Keyshawn. I was like, yeah, this guy's the future. You cannot deny his skill. He really is that guy. But his personality and his antics outside the ring, it definitely rubbed off the wrong way with me. And I was like, Keyshawn, nah, I'm not a fan anymore.
Yeah, I think a lot of people lost, or Davis lost some fans when, the way he acted when he was going to fight Edwin de los Santos, not making weight and then making these excuses. And then I think he ended up in that brawl or whatever. I think, those instances outside of the ring, I think, they speak loudly. You know what I'm saying? He becomes a world champion and right away he gets stripped and then doesn't fight. And then he does all this bullshit antics out of the ring. And I think it really, it's like what you said, it rubbed off the wrong way for a lot of people. And, with this performance, I think it's going to make people forget what he did. And I think now a lot more people are asking more of him. They're going to want to see him in bigger fights. And potentially championship level of fights. So, Davis is a guy who, I wouldn't say I was a hater, but, he did kind of rub me off the wrong way. But there is no denying that he is great and that, he could potentially become a 2-time world champion in 2 different weight classes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just depends on the route that they decide to take. For example, Dalton Smith and Alberto Puello, supposedly that's the next fight, so that WBC is already kind of gone for that. WBA, Gary Russell's taking on Andy Hirauka in a couple weeks, so Russell's busy right there. And then Hitchens, the IBF champion, he's open, but I'm sure that Lindorfo, who is the number 1 ranked, wants to have a championship shot next, so they're going to push for that.
Yeah, I also saw that maybe Hitchinson might fight Oscar Hitchens, might fight Oscar Duarte as well.
Yeah, that is happening. Yeah, so he is busy as well. So all the champions are going to be busy. The only one who would be free would be Shakur, but like we said, that fight will not happen for Keyshawn. So Keyshawn might as well start taking some other just top 10 contenders in different divisions, in different organizations, and try to build up his name up there so he can at least have more options for a title shot. But yeah, it was a very fantastic performance from Keyshawn. Really reminded the boxing world who he is and what he brings to the table. So very exciting to have him back and to deliver in grand fashion as the co-main event. But we also saw the crowning of a new world champion, first time ever. Shu Shu Carrington became the new WBC featherweight champion as he took on Mark Castro in the fight. Carlos Castro. Yeah, I was gonna say, Carlos Castro in a fight that was very difficult for Shu Shu Carrington. Definitely the best opponent of his career. In the fight that he was buzzed. He did get hurt, but he stood his ground, overcame the obstacle and got a stunning stoppage over Castro, who has fought against former world champions. So to do that against him was a very big statement from Shu Shu Carrington, who now becomes the new WBC featherweight world champion. And he is looking for perhaps unification. And exciting times, right, for the featherweight division?
Yeah, I think it is, especially for Shu Shu. You know what I'm saying? When I say Shu Shu, you guys say
City.
Yo, this guy, I think he has the makings of, becoming a really exciting fighter in the next couple of years. You know what I'm saying? That post-fight interview in the ring, it definitely sparked a lot of maybe favoritism. Maybe he gained a lot more fans with that performance as well. And I think for him and his team and whoever is helping him, match make his opponents and stuff like that, I think this was a great fight. You know what I'm saying? This guy didn't really sustain too much punishment, but he did go through some adversity. He did sustain a right hand. He got clipped with the right hand, and it did kind of buzz him. It did kind of clip him a little bit. You could tell he was a little bit hurt from that punch, but he overcame that, and then he was able to stop his opponent. Personally, for me, I thought that Carlos was going to take the win. I thought that his resume was solid. He did have losses, but he lost against guys who were from, the elite status. You know what I'm saying? You got Neri, you got Figueroa, if I'm not mistaken. Those guys are tough. You know what I'm saying? Those guys are, they're just going to give you hell. And I figured that, Carrington was biting more than he could chew. But, he did pretty good. I wouldn't even say pretty good. He did really good. He was able to neutralize Carlos in his attack and then just slowly get him into his style. And I think what I liked about Carrington is that, he's kind of he doesn't show too much. You know what I'm saying? He's establishing the jab. He's creating that distance that benefits him. And then once he feels like he can land powerful shots on his opponent, then that's when he lets it go. And I think that's what we saw. And I think if I'm not mistaken, that right hand was the one that caused the whole sequence of that knockdown. So, and I think it was like a 2-3 punch combination as well. So, I think Carrington, he's a good champion. So it's going to be interesting to see how he pairs up with some of these other champions.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying about Carrington. I do think he definitely deserves a lot of credit for this fight. It was a step up. He faced adversity, and he overcame it, and good on him. With that being said, this guy has a mouth on him, right? And he's been constantly calling out the monster, Naoya Inoue, who is, in my opinion, probably the number 2 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. After this fight, I don't think there's a question that Naoya Inoue would beat Bruce Carrington. So I want to see Carrington, settle down a little bit, right? Chill, okay? You're young. You have a lot of potential. You have great skills. But you're still not on a Naoya Inoue type of level. Or even at the 126, he's a world champion now. But there is a kingpin at the 126. There is a head honcho. There is the top guy. And that's Rafael Espinoza, El Divino. that guy would beat the shit out of Bruce Carrington. You know, he'd probably stop him. I'm gonna be honest. So I think Carrington, you know, I like his, you know, his mouth definitely does give him some fans. I do like his post-fight interview with the, you know, Shu Shu City or whatever. it was fun. It was entertaining. But there's levels to this shit, like we were talking about, and he is not on the level of, let's say, Divino Espinosa or Naya Inoue.
Would you guys say that Bruce Carrington is the weakest champion at 126?
Maybe Angelo Leo right now. But, I mean, keep in mind also, Angelo Leo, Bruce Carrington, and Divino Espinosa are all three fighters from Top Rank. So that's unification. Top Rank has nearly got a whole monopoly on the featherweight division, by the way. Let's keep that in mind. So they can make unifications happen. They're under the same promotion. Therefore, Bob Arum, what are you doing besides not getting Top Rank a new fucking network deal? You should be working on getting some of these unifications going on. But I feel like they're more interested in kind of, you know, staying dominant, you know, having multiple champions in one division rather than having them fight one another, which kind of sucks because Espinosa and Angelo Leo on paper should have already at least unified. It's already been a good amount of time since Angelo Leo became champion. Likewise for Divino Espinosa, and yet we've yet to see a unification despite them being from the same promotion. And now we got Shu Shu Carrington in the mix as well for Top Rank. So I would love to see a unification. If he goes against Divino Espinosa, he's got my respect because immediately going for the top guy, and especially the most dangerous guy at the 126, would definitely give me a lot more respect for Bruce Carrington. But theoretically, we'd have to see how Nick Ball does this upcoming weekend when he takes on Figueroa, which I think he will be beating Brandon Figueroa, considering Figueroa, in my eyes, is on the very fast decline. But Angelo Leo, for sure, we haven't really heard much of him in a while. So if I was Carrington, I'd maybe push for unification for the IBF champion and Angelo Leo and try to unify the division. Therefore, I can get more leverage in the negotiations against a fighter like El Divino Espinosa.
Okay, yeah, let's not tiptoe around. Rank the top four in that weight class.
I would say Divino number 1, probably Nick Ball number 2, and then Carrington and Angelo Leo would probably be 3, 4. Okay. I would say probably Bruce Carrington number 3 and Angelo Leo number 4.
Yeah, it's hard, man, because, I mean, yeah, clearly Espinosa, like I said, number 1. Nick Ball and Bruce Carrington, it's a very fun fight. It's hard to say, really, because I think they're fighting for 2, you know, and then Angelo Leo is down at 4. It's because we don't really know too much about him, and I don't know why dude, Top Rank does not give a fuck about him. I'm gonna be honest with you. They don't care. They don't care about him. He knocked out what was his name? El Venado Lopez. He knocked out El Venado Lopez, who Top Rank put a lot of money behind, right? And then they haven't given him a fight since. What is going on here?
Well, he fought in Japan after the fight, but then he hasn't been seen.
Yeah, I think that's his problem. I don't know, Leo hasn't fought in quite a while, so I think, you know, personally for me, I would put him at the bottom, Carrington as number 3, Ball as number 2, and then Espinosa as number 1. You know, I think Carrington has, you know, developed as a professional fighter, but how many fights does he have? Like 14?
I don't know.
16? 17? Yeah, I think, I mean, you know, he's looked better in these recent fights, but I don't think he's at that level to fight a guy like Espinosa or even much more or less beat him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, just Carrington just doesn't have those abilities that I see as, you know, oh, this guy is the real deal or whatever. This guy has good skills, good qualities and stuff like that. You know, he's a world champion. You know, not a lot of people can become a world champion, but when it comes to becoming a GOAT, you know, having your name written down in the history books, you know, I don't think it's there. You know, Espinosa, he's a freak of nature. I'll give him that. I think that gives him, the qualities to become, the head honcho of that division. But this guy is truly a nightmare for anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll definitely see what happens concerning the Shu Shu Carrington and his future at the 126. But as of right now, he is officially the new WBC champion, and he would be looking, he called out a lot of names, so he'll be looking to cement himself as a top player, as a top champion in that division. So we'll see his return later this year, I would assume, and we'll see who his next opponent will be. But those are all the fights from the Ring 6, I believe, that we wanted to cover for today's episode. Overall, it was an alright card. I mean, it was not worth the $70, but it was alright. We got a dominant ass whooping for Shakur. We got the return of Keyshawn, and we got a new champion. So I guess that's what we got.
No, I mean, it was also entertaining. You know what I'm saying? We got the I think it's funny how Teofimo Lopez was so confident of the fact that he brought a group of dancers to walk him out during the ring walk. Teofimo Lopez's trunks were, New York themed. You can see the New York skyline or whatever. They had, some of those New York buildings on his vest or whatever. So that was pretty entertaining. Also, I think the most entertaining part of the night was Big Baby Miller and how he lost his toupee. I could not believe a grown-ass man of 37 years old decided that it was a good idea to get a toupee 2 days before a big fight.
That was insane, man. Especially, why would you get that before going into a boxing match when your opponent is gonna punch you in the face? Like, you better have the greatest glue or whatever the fuck they use.
Bro, he should have used Gorilla Glue.
Yes, bro. Because why, man? And everyone, that was probably the biggest meme that came out of this weekend. So overall, there was some downs, there was some ups, but overall, I like the Ring 6. I'm a fan of the Ring 6.
That was good.
Yeah, especially for Turkey, since this was his return back to New York after the horrific ring headlined by Rolly Romero and Ryan Garcia last year. So I'm glad I'm sure he had a better time this year than he did last year. And also, we had a lot of legends in attendance as well, which was really cool to see. So overall, I thought it was all right of a card, but a better New York card than what we got last year. But speaking about these cards, we had a lot of boxing cards this past weekend. Not only did we get movement at the 140 and at the 126, but we also got major movement at the 154 concerning the Boogeyman, or ex-Boogeyman, aka Mr. Exposed, as a lot of people online are calling him. Murtazaliev returned to the ring against Josh Kelly in a fight that a lot of people were saying Murtazaliev should win. He's the Boogeyman. Virgil Boots ducked him, this and that. No one wants to fight him, yada yada. He looks scary. He beat the shit out of Tim Tszyu. And then what happened? Murtazaliev was beaten by Josh Kelly on his return to the ring after beating Tim Tszyu. And now we have a new IBF champion. Not only that, we got a unified champion in Xander Zayas, as he beat Barao in Puerto Rico to become a 23-year-old unified champion at the 154. So lots of major movements in that division. Thoughts?
Yeah, this was a big weekend for that weight class, the 154-pound weight class. We got unifications. We got a new champion in that weight class. Let me start off with Murtazaliev and Kelly. I guess 2026 is the year of Boogeyman's being exposed. You have earlier in the month, Subir Matias, the Boogeyman at 140 getting exposed by an Englishman. Now we have another Boogeyman, Murtazaliev, being exposed by another Englishman, Josh Kelly, a guy who, He's been up there, within the weight class, top 15, top 10 contender, depending on the organization that's being, that's ranking him. He's there, he's solid. And going into this fight, I thought that he was just going to get stopped. I did not think that he was going to perform the way he did. Not only did he perform better than my exceptions and everybody else's exceptions, but he also expectations. But he also bounced back from a knockdown. Who gets up from a knockdown from Murtazaliev? Not Tim Tszyu. Not anyone else.
Hey, don't disrespect my goat like that. He got up like twice or 3 times, bro. All right, he got up from a knockdown.
Quit dick riding. But in all seriousness, so, you know, 2 things that I can take out from this fight is the fact that Josh Kelly and his team came to this fight with the best game plan ever against a guy who is scary like Murtazaliev. They really performed to the best of their abilities. And if I'm not mistaken, every break throughout every round, I don't even think he took a seat. You know what I'm saying? Josh Kelly was standing on his feet between rounds. That shows you just the amount of work and dedication that was put into that training camp for this fight. In regards to Murtazaliev, I think the saying of, you know, oh man, what's the word? When you don't fight consistently, you know, ring rust becomes evident. And I don't want to say there was ring rust, but it was evident that, you know, there was a lot of time. I think it was over a year since Murtazaliev has fought. You know, that's going to catch up to you. You know, Murtazaliev isn't an old guy. You know, this wasn't like, oh, age just caught up to this dude. I don't think I saw that. I think what I saw was the fact that he hadn't fought in so long that I think once he fought, it kind of felt awkward. And I think it doesn't help that, you know, his dancing partner, you know, wasn't willing to engage as well. But, you know, being the boogeyman that you are, you have to, you know that and, you know, find adjustments, cut the ring off, and, you know, let your punches go. And I think Josh Kelly was a better man that night.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. I think there was probably maybe a little bit of ring rust, but I don't even think that was the main thing, man. I really do think it was Josh Kelly's style. Kelly was on his bike for a big portion of the fight. And I wouldn't say he was running. I mean, at some points he was. There was like literally some points where the guy literally did not stop moving, right? He was like a William Skull versus Canelo, right? Just running around the ring. By the way, Skull got knocked out this past weekend too, which was very funny to see, you know. But I digress. Yeah, Kelly was, you know, he did his thing, man. He knocked Murtazaliev down with the fucking jab. What the hell was that, right? So he did his thing, right? You really can't you can't hate on him. I think just Murtazaliev was he's a little too flat-footed. You know, especially against that style, it kind of exposed it a little bit. He was chasing him too much. He was throwing when he shouldn't have been throwing. You know, there was a lot of instances in the fight where Murtazaliev threw and fucking hit the ropes. Like, and even he was aiming towards the body and he was still missing shots. And it's like, you can't really be doing that, you know, especially if you're a world champion. So I was impressed by Josh Kelly. He was disciplined. He didn't because that's another thing. You know, his past fight, we've known about Josh Kelly for a very long time. We saw him go up the rankings. He's a cocky guy. he's a showmanship, right? He likes to showboat. He likes to do everything in the ring because he has great skills. But in his loss against Avanesian, he was showboating. He was winning that fight, but he got tired, and the fight started getting into deep waters, and eventually he got stopped. So I think this fight, he started getting a little confident, a little overconfident, and Murtazaliev clipped him and dropped him. And I think he kind of recalibrated and then saw it through. So he definitely showed a lot of discipline in this fight. For Murtazaliev, I'm very disappointed because I was really sold on him. I really didn't want to see him fight the top guys, man. I still think he's a top guy at 154, but it's going to be a little bit difficult for him because He's so unknown. He has no following. His management isn't really that great. So I don't know if he's going to have to claw his way back to the top, or they're going to give him another shot at a top guy. We're going to have to wait and see on him. But I was expecting a little bit more from him. So that's why I was a little disappointed seeing that fight.
Yeah. I think that's what happens when you are a boogeyman of a certain weight class. You know, people don't want to fight you, you know, when you are a champion. But when you aren't a champion, yeah, people are not going to fight you at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, for what? Like, why am I going to put my undefeated record against a dangerous fighter who isn't a world champion? You know what I'm saying? So, unfortunately, he's not going to just have to claw his way back. He's going to have to grip his way back to the elite status, because unfortunately, like what you said, he doesn't have that negotiating power. He doesn't have fans that, you know, watch his fights and stuff like that. So, you know, it's very unfortunate for him. Like what you said, I was expecting a little bit more from him, you know, given his situation. But, you know, styles make fights. You know, things happen for a reason, and, you know, he lost.
Mm-hmm. Yes, now Josh Kelly is the new IBF champion. There was people saying that Josh Kelly against Boots is next. So,
well, actually, I'm pretty sure he already signed. Apparently, Eddie Hearn said that Josh Kelly has already signed for the fight against Boots.
Yes. That's what I saw. They're still going on about the Virgil negotiation. So the whole, you know, Kelly and Boots is, I guess, plan B if Virgil's not able to. If that fight is not able to come into fruition, which I don't mind, because then Boots can get a belt, and then Virgil Ortiz, that's bad for him, because now he's dealing with the whole lawsuit with Golden Boy, and he's gonna, you know, watch his counterpart, his rival, win a world champion perhaps at this new weight division, and only his second fight. Mm-hmm. So overall for Boots, this is probably the best type of scenario he's in. But Josh Kelly, yes, the new champion at the IBF, and the UK has had a great month. I mean, a great start to 2026. They had two major upsets, Dalton Smith and now Josh Kelly. So the UK right now is, you know, celebrating. They're very happy, very pride, but, you know, really
Sweet
prideful.
Caroline.
Exactly, man. So they are having a fun time right now in the UK to kick off 2026. But we also had Puerto Rico on showcase this past weekend, as well, with Xander Zayas becoming a unified champion, being the WBA and WBO champion at the 154. 23 years old. You know, I've had my critiques on Xander. I still do. I don't consider him crazy good, as a lot of people do. I know when we have said that multiple times, people online come at us saying, you know, you guys don't know boxing, whatever, blah, blah. I'm still not that sold on him. But he is unified, and I can't deny that's a great accomplishment, especially for the 154, which, if you look at the resume, I mean, you're going to be like, he is the most accomplished unified champion at the current, you know, toughest weight division in boxing. So I'll give him that. He became unified champion, defeating Barao, and now he has so much polling power, so much negotiation power to his hand. I mean, the whole Virgil Ortiz and Xander Zayas beef that was ongoing. I mean, Xander Zayas can just say, "Hey, bro, you gotta, you know, everything's gonna be up to me. You know, I'm the A side, you're B side, this and that. Everything's gonna go according to him." So the polling power that Xander Zayas has currently in the division is crazy. But overall, good for him. Thoughts about him?
Yeah, this was a really good fight. I think some of those critiques that you mentioned, Pablo, I feel those exact same ways, or the sentiment as well. Yeah, Xander Zayas showed us that, you know, he has a little bit more under his arsenal. You know what I'm saying? Barahu is tough. Yeah, this African dude, German African dude, is tough as fuck. You know what I'm saying? But I think Zayas did what he needed to do in order to become victorious for that fight. I mean, I watched the fight, and I saw him win. I saw him use that ring IQ. I saw him impose that size that he has. You know, he's 23. He has really good size for that weight class, and really good frame for that weight class as well. And I think he used all of those things that night. And I think, the right man won. Now he's a 2-time unified champion in that weight class. He basically has 2 out of the 4 belts. That's a lot. I think that's quite a bit. And again, only at 23 years old, that shows you a lot. That shows the confidence in this young bull. And I'm really excited to see where he goes from here because he has an unlimited amount of options. He called out Virgil Ortiz. He's like, yeah, I'll fight him, but it's got to be in Puerto Rico. And I think that makes, I'm pretty sure they're going to fight down the line. So all this thing is just brewing between them two. I think it's going to be fun, once they fight.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, didn't Barao get the title gifted to him?
No, he beat the interim champion.
Oh, I thought he was.
Xander got the WBO pretty much gifted to him. We'll say, well, not really, but people often say that the WBO gave Xander the title, but
yeah, I mean, he fought a guy. What was it? Garcia.
Yeah,
he fought Garcia for that belt. Barajo though, he did fight against a tough Cuban, Zayas. Mm-hmm. He beat the shit out of Zayas, and I thought, coming into this fight, I thought we were going to see that aggression, like overly aggressive Barajo against Zayas, and I thought that he was just going to run him over, like how when you see a steamroller just putting down the new pavement. Mm-hmm. I thought that's what we were going to see, and I thought we were going to see Zayas being the pavement. That's not how it turned out. It looked like your typical matador against a bull. You know what I'm saying? That's what we saw. We saw Zayas just continuously move around the ring with that jab. He was at certain points he would stand his ground and let some of those shots go. But for the most part, he was just moving him, just turning him in circles. And he won off just based off of that. Just ring IQ and being smart.
Yeah, the biggest thing for Zayas is that he's 23, so he definitely still has a lot of room to grow. Because right now, there's some killers at 154, like we've said, that aren't world champions, specifically Virgil Ortiz and Boots Ennis. These guys are going to dominate the division. That's my prediction. Zayas and Josh Kelly, they're good fighters, right? But they're nowhere near the level of Virgil Ortiz and Boots Ennis and Fundora. I just completely forgot about him. Fundora too. How could I forget about that 6'5" guy, right? No, all these guys are the ones that are going to dominate the division. So Zayas, 23 years old, he has potential to continue to improve. He did a good showing. I know I'm surprised that a lot of people are behind him, man. And I think it's those Puerto Ricans, man. I'm going to be honest. Because after the fight, I was looking online and there was a bunch of Puerto Rican flags. All the comments are saying Puerto Ricans. I was like, man, those Puerto Ricans are behind him.
Yo, he filled out that stadium in Puerto Rico. I'm pretty sure it was like 12,000 tickets that he sold. So I'm not sure how big the venue was, but just having that pulling power at 23 years old. To be able to get people from your own country to come watch you fight like that in a big stage like that, I think it really shows a lot, and it shows that he's really becoming that star that Top Rank really want him to see. That investment is paying off.
Puerto Rico's not a country, bro.
Yeah, United States territory. My bad. Yeah.
No, but listen.
Is that a country?
Yo, is Puerto Rico not a country?
Yeah, no, but listen, Zayas.
Yo, ChatGPT that shit right now. What the fuck?
No, it is a U.S. territory. Like, okay, it is a U.S. territory. Okay. So it's not a country, but it is true, man. At 23 years old, to be able to have all that. Oh my gosh. Hold on, let's lock in, bro. We gotta lock in for real. Okay. 23 years old, being able to have that pulling power and the whole Puerto Rico behind you. I mean, it is really impressive, and especially guys. Exposed.
You looked that shit up. I thought it was a country, bro.
No, bro, it's not a country.
Well, I knew that it's a U.S. territory, but I thought everybody was like, yeah, it's its own country type shit.
No. Okay, hold on. All right. No.
Okay.
Let's put the geography aside and the politics aside. Let's go back to the boxing. No. Zayas.
Zayas is the king of this fucking island.
Yeah, it is. No. For that's one of these. You gotta. I'm done. I can't.
Well, whatever you want to say. Yes, Zayas is
the unified champion at the 154. Yes, he does have a large following, and I mean, rightfully so. I would say I'd consider him the best Puerto Rican fighter at the moment. I mean, there's the fighter at he's a smaller weight division. I forgot his name.
Oscar Collazo.
Yes,
from 108. Yes.
Collazo. Yeah, I mean, besides him, a lot of people get him highly or rate him highly, but yeah, definitely Xander is up there as one of the best fighters, and I mean, it's evident that he shows that he can sell out arenas down there in Puerto Rico. So hence why he's always saying, "Oh, it has to be in Puerto Rico. It has to be in Puerto Rico." And now that he's a unified champion, it definitely has to be in Puerto Rico. It has to be in Puerto Rico. So he's got a lot of polling power now, or he's already had polling power, but he has a lot more negotiation power now that he's a unified champion, especially at the 154. That's impressive by itself. So very interesting to see how that weight division develops for 2026. We already have major movements in the division with a new champion and a new unified champion. So we'll most likely see the return of Fundora. We'll see some other contenders rise up. Maybe Boots gets in the mix. Maybe it happens with Virgil Ortiz. So many questions, so many scenarios that can play out. But like I said, the 154, definitely the best division. Will we see the return of Murtazaliev? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But I guess before we just end off on this, within the 154-pound division, you know, we have new champions. The landscape has changed. How would you rank the champions? You know, because currently right now there's only 3.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Sebastian Fundora is still my number one. Yeah, he's still definitely the best champion and probably the best fighter at the 154 at the moment still, in my eyes. But honestly, Xander and Josh Kelly, it's kind of hard to say. I think Josh Kelly had a better performance. More so, it was within the aspect of the opponent that he fought in the caliber of Murtazaliev. So I mean, I would have to put, you know, Josh Kelly number 2, but then people can make the argument that Xander is a unified champion, therefore shouldn't that make him a number But so we'll see what happens then. Definitely a lot of movement, like I mentioned, and we'll see how the landscape develops for later in the year. But I think we covered everything that we wanted to cover in today's episode. Let us know down below your official ratings for the best champion of 154, your thoughts on Shakur Teofimo Lopez, and where do you want to see happen, or what do you want to see happen next concerning Shakur and Teofimo? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on all forms of social media. We are on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Lastly, we're trying to build up a community on Discord, and you guys joining would be greatly appreciated. This was Pablo, and I'm with Rudo and Asa, and this was the Last Round Podcast. Thank you for watching.